person here. Cool having you on here. But anyways, I would love to know what you guys think on this subject. I've been kind of mulling over and it's been popping up in my feeds. I've been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube about it. I think I'm more conscious about it right now because of what I'm going through with trying to get citizenship in Sweden, about them trying to change the laws to 8 years here in Sweden and a whole bunch of other stuff, which for me, it's going to be at least 10 years because they're not going to count the first 2 years. So I've been looking at my other options. As y'all know, I've applied for British citizenship. I actually submitted the last of my paperwork this week. So they're going to have to request my mother's birth certificate because the one I had was not what they need. They need like something else. And they said next week I should have an answer about an interview, which is crazy because that means it's only been like 3 weeks applying for citizenship in Britain if I get lined up for an interview. So it goes pretty fast. Super excited about that. But I've been looking at something else that I would love to have your feedback on, and that has to do with Canada. So one of the other countries I was looking at before this whole thing of, oh, I qualify for British citizenship through birth is Canadian, moving there and getting Canadian citizenship. Because I found out, the nice thing about Canada is my family lives in the United States. So it's much easier for me to, if I'm living in Canada, I could literally just hop on a plane on the weekend and go see my mom and help her. And it's a 3-hour flight from, like, if it's one of the middle provinces down to Dallas, it's like straight down. It's like 3 hours. Pretty cheap flights. Salaries are way better than Sweden. Salaries are at least 150% of what it is here in Sweden. They also have my job title, which is nurse practitioner. They don't have nurse practitioners in Sweden. So I'm not working at the level that I'm educated at. I'm working actually a lot lower. So I'm not using a lot of the skills I got a master's degree and I'm not using any of that training, but that role exists in Canada. So I literally could, and I know money is a sensitive topic, but I had a discussion with my colleagues about this at work that are Swedish. And I know talking with Swedish people, it's talking about money is such a sensitive thing. And we were all under agreement that if we made more money, then we would work less, because that's the big issue really, is time is more important than money. But when you work a lot, it's like, then your life disappears before you know it. It's time to retire and you didn't get to actually enjoy life, and now you're maybe sick and got health problems or whatever, or you missed time with your kids. And I'm like, to me, if I made more money, I would work less. I would drop down to like, 75% or 50%, like part-time, so that I could have more free time for going hiking, going out in nature, doing hobbies, doing YouTube. I would love to, really expand my skills with YouTube and that sort of thing. And with Canada, there is the option where I could work as a nurse practitioner, use my master's degree, which that doesn't exist in Sweden. And so if I worked in that role, I would make double what I make in Sweden. And the taxes are slightly less from what I understand. And of course, it's in English, unless I live and work in Quebec. The other thing is Canada, it's a 6-month wait for permanent residency, which is crazy because I've been here almost 5 years and I still don't have permanent residency in Sweden. Because of that, a lot of employers don't want to hire me, which is another reason why people are like, what does citizenship matter? And it's like, because I'm very limited on what I can do. I don't have the freedoms that a citizen or a permanent resident has in Sweden. So like, I have looked at different jobs through the years here in Sweden, and no one wants to take me without either permanent residency or with citizenship. So it's really frustrating to me because, like, one reason I moved to Sweden, I want to travel. I want to see what Sweden has to offer, but I'm kind of like stuck here. I'm working 40 hours a week. And then when you finally get vacation time, it's like, okay, I'm gonna use the vacation time to go back and see my mom and the family. And then you go back and just repeat again. And it's just like, this is not life. This is not living for me. And I don't make enough money to go down to part-time. If I made less money, then I get kicked out of Sweden. Like, you're supposed to make a certain amount of money here. And if I go down to part-time, then I can't do that. So I'm like, this is just really frustrating to me. But, if I went to Canada, it'd be a faster process because in 6 months, you're a permanent resident. And then only 3 years to get citizenship after getting permanent residency in Canada. I was like, I mean, that's crazy. So here's the big thing I want to put out to you guys. And oh, hey, Leif, you're just a stone and a throw half from Mama. Yep, that's awesome. You're just a neighbor, huh? Yeah. So my thing that I want to discuss with you guys, that was a long journey to get to where we're at here in this discussion. Canada becoming a part of the European Union. So I'm seeing this falling into my feeds now is should and could Canada become an EU member? And I saw something pop up after coming home from work tonight, and I watched it, and it was talking about how there's been a few comments being made. There are some alliances being formed and some agreements and all this kind of stuff in the world now, and it's basically where Europe and Canada are having friendlier and friendlier, closer relations. And the thought has been thrown out there of Canada joining the EU, and that if there's any country outside the EU that is very European, it would be, like in the North American and South American continents, it would be, of course, Canada. It's very much very European. And so I'm like looking through the comments at the bottom, and I could not find a single comment. I'm sure there's some negative comments in there, but I just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. I couldn't find anything negative. Everyone's like, oh, that'd be so awesome to have Canada. Canadians are saying it sounds great. The Europeans are like, oh, you'd be so welcome, all this kind of thing. And I've never seen that kind of feedback before on something like this kind of subject. It's a fascinating idea. And so I'm curious what you guys think about that. Do y'all think it's something doable? I know they would have, basically, they said there would have to be some changes to some treaties with the EU, and all the EU members would have to agree to it. I wonder what the likelihood is of like all the EU members agreeing to something like this. What's the likelihood of Canada agreeing to it? Would Canadians want it? Would Europeans want it? I want to hear what y'all have to say about it. I'm seeing some comments here. Let's see here. Leif, you asked me about researching the EU permanent residency thing. I did, and apparently I don't meet the criteria, unfortunately. Some of the things that it was talking, like there's different pathways, but one of the big things was income level, and I don't make enough money to qualify for EU citizenship because my income is too low here in Sweden, unfortunately. Um, And then Leif, you also say Canada can for sure become an EU member. We even have a common border, however unlikely it seems. That's an interesting thought. I didn't even think about that, Leif, about sharing a border. Yeah, because if you think about the Arctic and all that area. And then I'm hearing Iceland talking now about joining the EU because of all the crazy stuff going with the United States right now. There's been some rumors of Iceland joining. I think it would be a pretty quick, easy thing for Iceland. Um, and then Where News says unlikely, but would be cool with it. Yeah, and it's fascinating, a fascinating topic. Leif says Canada and Denmark share a 1.2-kilometer land border established in June 2022 by splitting the uninhabited Hans Island in the Arctic's narrow strait between Canada and Greenland. That's true. Is that the island where they would like set like a flask of whiskey out there for the other people? Like they would take turns. I think I saw some documentary about that. Yeah, yeah. Fascinating stuff. Love it. That would be an interesting thing. And I think, Canada would have a lot to offer. Um, yeah, Cuba says amazing, didn't know. Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. I love geography. I'm kind of a geography nerd. I'm not like an expert by any means of geography, but I am very nerdy about it and love studying that kind of weird anomalies and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I also saw in some of the comments they were talking about, well, Australia is on Eurovision and some other places like that. Here's the other thing I was thinking about was I'm also looking into, so of course Iceland. joining EU. Canada, discussion about it. But it would be, I don't think it'd be anything just around the corner. I think it's going to be something that's going to take a little bit of time to get those things in order. Like, having to get every single country on board on the EU with being okay with this and ratifying the treaties. But the other one that has been popping up is the UK, because as you know, I found out that I inherited British citizenship and all I have to do is register, which then by registering for British citizenship, that entitles me to the right to work in the Republic, to the right to work and live in the Republic of Ireland, which is an EU member. So it would be so much easier for me with British citizenship because then I could just live and work in Ireland. They have nurse practitioners, which, like I said, Canada has it, Sweden doesn't. I would be able to use all this education that is just basically going to waste. I'm basically trained to be kind of like in between a nurse and a doctor. So I'm a mid-level care provider, and it exists in many countries, but for some reason Sweden doesn't have it. Even Norway has it, Finland has it, but Sweden doesn't have it. So that'd be awesome because then I could live and work in Ireland if I wanted to and get citizenship in just 5 years. I don't need three citizenships, but that would open up the opportunity. I could always come back to Sweden. Like I could literally, this is what's crazy. If they go through with the 8 year thing, but then, in Sweden to get citizenship taking 8 years, if they go through with that, I could literally get my British citizenship here in a month or two, move to Ireland, get citizenship in Ireland, and be a EU member faster than staying here in Sweden and just toughing it out for the next few years. So, and I would be able to make more money because then I'm working as a nurse practitioner, which pushes me up to the next bracket. And then because I need to think about my pension, I need to think about my retirement because I'm 44 and I've only been paying into the Swedish pension for, you know, the last 2.5 years. The first 2 years I was making no money because I was studying Swedish and worked in home health care that didn't pay me squat. I was making like 120 kroner an hour, $12 an hour working home health, 80%. So those first 2 years don't count. So now I'm like having to recover all that life savings that I spent paying for college here in Sweden, getting an apartment, furnishing the apartment, driver's license, dental, healthcare issues that I had to pay for out of pocket. And so it's like I make a comfortable salary now. I'm happy with the salary I make in Sweden, but I don't make enough extra to put back for like a rainy day and to pay off what, my pension and my retirement that I've used up coming here. So I really need to think long and hard about this. Like I said, if they go to 8 years, I'm weighing very heavily my other possibilities of either use the UK citizenship. I probably wouldn't live in the UK. I would probably just live in Ireland, then get my Irish citizenship. And the other thing is, if I marry someone in Ireland, I become a citizen in just 3 years. So, like, say 3 years from now, I can move back to Sweden and work here, and then I don't need Swedish citizenship because then I have EU citizenship, and it wouldn't even matter. So yeah, just thinking out loud, bouncing off you guys here. Y'all got any? Sorry, I've been doing a lot of talking here. It's 18 minutes in. A motor mouth here. Y'all got any ideas, comments, recipes, thoughts, suggestions? Yeah, Canada and US share an agreement where certain professions are allowed to cross the border and work and settle. That is true. So as an American, because I'm a skilled worker, so that's what I don't understand about Sweden. Not most, a lot of countries have a work agreement where it's kind of like fast track, like Australia has it too, where if you are specialized in something that they need that and it's updated like once a year, you can go there, apply for permanent residency really fast because you're filling a big need. I think it's a brilliant idea. And I don't understand why Sweden is not thinking about this because it's like There are things that we need very badly here in Sweden. I'll give you an example. One of the hospitals that I had applied for a job at, they had two positions for a certain type of nurse. And I applied and I got it. But those positions had been up for months and never got filled. I got the interview and was like offered a job like that. Like they said, come up here, do a 1 day, where you go with us and see if you like it. And I did 1 day, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we would love to have you. So then I got offered the job. It was like I had no competition. And then I ended up not taking the job because my current employer said, well, we will offer you more money to stay, not the same amount as the new job was going to give me. But the thing was, I was going to have to commute an hour to work, hour back, flip flop schedules, and all that kind of stuff, and then learn a new job. And they're like, we'll offer you, a few thousand more kroner a month if you stay. Because they weren't paying me at my current job for my specialty license, because I'm also a specialist, and they weren't paying me for that. So I was getting like way below median salary, despite 16 years experience, a master's degree, double certified, all this kind of stuff. They were basically paying me like a brand spanking new nurse with no experience. And so when they offered that, and I thought, well, that's great, because then I don't have to learn a new job. I already know everybody here. And then, I don't have to commute an hour to and from work every day. So I ended up, can it be Fox? Was there a technical assessment for nursing in addition to a field test for your job? I'm not sure if I understand the question. A technical assessment for nursing in addition to field tests. Maybe you can give us some clarifications on what you mean. I'm assuming you mean to get my license. Was there like a hands-on practical thing, and was there like a written thing? Is that what you mean? Okay. Canopy Fox. So it was like this. In the States, you do. I guess you're meaning in the States, or are you meaning in Sweden? I'll answer both. For Sweden. In Sweden, there are 2 exams, but there's 5 steps. First step is you have all your education assessed. Then after your education is assessed and approved by the Agency for Healthcare here in Sweden, then you have to study Swedish. Then you have to get up to a certain level of Swedish, which is high school level. So I got that certificate showing that I was high school level after 11 months studying at the university. Then that allowed me to go on to the next step. Next step was to apply at the university to sit for a kunskapsprov, is what it's called, or a knowledge test. And it's basically was 2 case studies. And in the case studies, they make some math. There wasn't much math, but there's some math in there, some like dose calculations for medication administration. And then it's like, basically your patient comes in to this department and they have this problem. And then you have to go through the whole thing of like admitting them, treating them, addressing problems, nursing theory is in there. And then you start getting them ready for discharge. I think one of them was palliative care. So it's like end of life. So there's a lot of questions about end of life care. It was actually pretty easy. I think the tests were quite easy compared to the tests I did in America. They're way harder in America. The problem was the language, because I'm not a native Swedish speaker. There's also a lot of nursing theory that I'm not familiar with. That's Swedish nursing theory versus American nursing theory. It's like stuff you'll never learn again and you'll never use in your life. It was uh, like what's the 6 S's of palliative care? It was like självständighet, which is like independence, and smärtstillande, which is like pain management. It's like there's an S. It's like, it's just nursing theory. So anyway, that was one exam. Then the second exam was hands-on, a practical exam. So you actually had to go in to the university, and they had like mock-ups. And so like they had dummies in each room, and it's like, okay, here you're going to hang a blood transfusion, and you had like all the teachers watching you, and they're asking you questions, and it's all in Swedish, right? So it's like pretty stressful. It's like, and why did you do that? Well, why didn't you do it this way? And what's the evidence before that? And could you have done it better? It's just like, oh my goodness, it was pretty tough. And you don't know what you're going to be tested on. There's like 14 different skills, like blood transfusions, taking a blood culture, giving an intramuscular injection, giving a subcutaneous injection, administration of oxygen, it was just like a whole lot of things. And so you just show up and they're like, okay, go in room one. And you have no idea. And they're timing you. And then you open the door. It's like, okay, welcome. You're going to give a blood transfusion. Start. And you've got like 5 minutes. And then it's all in Swedish. So that was part two. And then after that, then you have to wait and apply for something through the university that's called Författningskunskap, which is kind of like that legal stuff with healthcare. And it's a long thing. It took me a couple months to do, as like lots of book work and reading and PowerPoints and some exams. And then you got to like write up like a mock-up, like of an actual patient that you've actually taken care of. You have to come up with an ethical dilemma and then solve it using like the legal system here in Sweden. So I did that. And then you have 3 months called tjänstgöring, which is like it's basically means like duty doing or something. It's like you go with another nurse who's your handler and work with them for 3 months, and they have to check you off on many, many pages to make sure that you know how to do what you're supposed to do as a nurse. And then you pay the fee and you get your license. So that's what I had to do to get a Swedish nursing license. I hope that answers your question there, Canopy Fox. Gonna go back to Leif here. Leif is saying, I can't grasp that you don't meet income requirements to get EU long-term resident status. Yeah, I know. It's weird. Fake. I'm not familiar with that. It says there there is no fixed requirement, just that you should earn enough to get by, which should be somewhere between 16 to 20,000 K. You should be earning a lot more than that. So actually, if you are here on a work permit, like in my case, you have to earn 80% of median Swedish salary. So that puts you up in the 30 something thousand kroner range, which is quite high. So for in my case, if I were to drop down to part-time, then that would put me below the amount of money that I need to make. The most I could take off, like drop down on my Arbeitstider, my work time would be like 90%, which means like every other week I could have like a day off in the middle of the week. So yeah. Let's see here. Cue ball. Your wife is a physiotherapist and could work in Sweden if she would reach language level C1, where she has none. You know what, though? Germans are impressive people. I have to say that, cue ball. Y'all learn Swedish so fast. I don't know anyone who learns Swedish faster than Germans. In fact, that's rubbed in my face continually of, why is it taking you this long for you to learn Swedish? Because I know a German guy that learned Swedish in 6 months. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. But I think German is just, the funny thing is learning Swedish has opened my brain to German. Like I hear a lot of German words. I have one of my closest friends is German. I forget the name of the area of Germany he's from. He's from where they make Jägermeister. But I was with him and he's like, how do you know like all these German words? Like I would just guess. And I'm like, well, it's the same word as the Swedish word, you know? Like I couldn't speak the German, but it's like I understood what him and his wife were talking about. Can it be Fox? Q Boss says, I'm on it. Yeah. Can it be Fox? I find Germans to be very good at rule following, having structured approach to life. Yes, can it be Fox? And they're better than Swedes at that. My humble opinion. My German friends that I was just mentioning about, they came to Sweden and they were shocked at, in their minds, Sweden's very chaos and very disorganized. They're like, the people are not standing in a line and they're just crossing the road when there's like, like, you know, like jaywalking, like people jaywalk all the time here in Sweden. And they're like, that would not happen in Germany. And, you know, like the recycling here is nothing like German recycling. And um, people like walking on the sidewalks. Like in Germany, you stand on this side when you're going that direction, and then when you're going the other way, you stand on the other side. And it's like here in Sweden, people are just like all over, and they're walking in pairs and blocking this. That was cracking me up so much. I was like, this is hilarious because they're both European. You would think they're very much the same, but there's quite a bit of difference. Let's see here, Leif. But that is the range you need to for your work permit. That's not applicable for your EU long-term resident status. Once you qualify for it, you don't need 80%. So are you saying like I need to make up to a certain amount to apply for it, and then I can just drop down once I've got it? I assume that's what you mean. Let me check because if I remember correctly, I can't remember. I looked at it, but it was like I want to say it was like 50 to 60,000 kroner or something. I could have that wrong. Let's see here. EU. I'm just gonna do a quick Google search here. EU permanent residence requirements. Let's see what it says here on the Google. Okay, that's another one. I have to have lived in the EU for at least 5 years, and I have to have met the requirements for residence as a worker, student, self-employed person, or self-sufficient individual. So there's the 5 years, so I haven't met that yet. Continuous residence absence of less than 6 months per year generally do not affect. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Non-EU citizens. Yeah, it says the same thing. 5 years for non-EU citizens. Um, because I think I don't know if maybe I'm just misunderstanding, but there's it's this thing here called the EU Blue Card. It says specifically for high qualified employment requiring a university degree or 5+ years experience, a high salary, and comprehensive health. So if I go to Migration Verket here, we'll take a look at it and see what it says. Because I think it depends on the country that you're in. Okay, so what happens is then it takes me right back to the Migration Verket's permanent residence card for non-EU members. Requirements, it says you have to have lived in Sweden for 5 years and had a relationship with an EU citizen. Your okay, so that okay, so that pushes me out too. I don't know. It's clear as mud. I've looked into it. I don't know. It's very complicated because, like, I just now looked on it now, and now it's saying I have to have had a relationship with someone for 5 years, which I don't have that. I have to have lived in Sweden for 5 years. I saw something one time about that you need to make like it was like 50 or 60, the equivalent of like 50 or 60,000 um, Swedish kroners. I don't know. I find it a little confusing. Uh, I can look into it again though. Mr. Zaku, 6. Dutch learn really fast as well. And you are correct about that. I've met a few Dutch people and they learn, I think, pretty much almost as fast as the Germans. Huron News is saying the same thing about the Dutch learning Swedish. Yeah. I think the Germans, the Dutch, and the Swedes have so much in common, but then at the same time, the languages are different enough that you don't get confused. Because one thing I was taught by a couple of my professors at the university for studying Swedish was the worst people at learning Swedish is the Danish. They said the only person worse than learning Swedish than an English person is Danish people. And they said the problem is Danish is so close to Swedish, but it's just like off enough to where it's very difficult for them. And then English, it's a little bit easier. What I noticed with a lot of Danish people, in fact, I had a Danish patient today, is they just like learn the words that are different. and then they say those words, but then they pronounce it the Danish way. And so for some, I understand it pretty well, but I know a lot of people really struggle talking to Danish people here in Skåne. Um, and then Norwegian is like so close to Swedish. I don't really think it matters. I think is there's a few words here and there that are a little bit different, and the spelling looks different. But Germans and Dutch, I think, are probably the fastest learners for Swedish, generally speaking. Schluter as an American that's been living in Germany for 48 years, I have noticed a lot of similarities between German and Swedish. That might be why. Oh, absolutely. Trying to think of one of the, what was that word again? I was with my friend and he said a word. I can't remember what it was. Basically translated to awesome. And when he said it, I was like, it was exactly the same word as in Swedish. And I can't think of what word it was. Says Schluter, Germans get along better with learning. Yeah. I wonder if it has to do with just being regimented and organized. Let's see. Cars have to stop. It's the driver's duty not to hit me. You know, in Sweden, that's one thing that frustrates me about Swedes. I feel like it's like, well, the rule is this, so I'm going to cross the street because I have the right of way. It's like having the right of way doesn't keep you from dying. What about a driver who sneezes and doesn't see you, or, someone has a seizure and they're driving, stuff like that happens, right? It's like being right doesn't save your life. You still need to like have your wits about you and be vigilant and look both ways. But what I see is a lot of Swedes like, and that was another thing my friend from Germany said is like Germans, when they're crossing the street, they're not allowed. I don't know if this is true, but he said that there they can only have one earphone in. They can't have it in both ears, so they can hear what's going on around, and that you're not really supposed to be looking at your cell phone. But here in Sweden, people have both in. They don't look before they cross the street. They have their cell phone. They're like watching TikTok, and they just like walk right out into traffic, and I'm just like zombies. I'm like, and he commented on it. He's like, "What is up with that?" I'm like, I don't know. It's so weird because like in the States, one of the big things I noticed a huge difference from Texas versus Skåne, where I live, is I feel like Swedes are more glued to their cell phones and the headphones are in, and they're just, to me, it was just like they're in their own world. Whereas in Texas, we were always taught you look both ways when you cross the street. And so, like, every time I travel back and forth between Texas and Sweden, that's always kind of like reverse culture shock. Every time I come back to one or the other, trying to get used to that whole thing. Like in America, or at least in Texas, where I come from, we're really scared of hitting a person. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we'll get sued. You can use your driver's license and you can go to jail. But then, like here, I know several people at my job that have been hit by cars just in the 2.5 years I've worked here. And nothing happened to the driver. An investigation was done and the person doesn't lose their driver's license. Um, Two of my coworkers were on bicycles and got banged up pretty bad by someone hitting them. It's like, if that happened in Texas, you would lose your driver's license. You might even have to go to jail. So I feel like we're like a little bit more careful about that. I think the issue in the States is that a lot of the roads are not designed for bicyclists and they're not designed for pedestrians. So that is changing. Like where I come from in Fort Worth, they are putting in a lot of bicycle lanes. Like here in Malmo, I don't think Malmo is very bicycle friendly because a lot of the streets there are like they have the bicycle like right out in the street. There's no way to pass up the bicyclist. There's no bicycle path, and that just increases the risk because people don't want to sit behind a bicyclist that's going slow. So then they're going to pass, and then a car comes from the other direction, and there's a bicyclist on that side. And I'm just like, it's so dangerous, and I expected it to be more like Netherlands because like Netherlands has bicycle paths everywhere, super bicycle friendly. But I don't know, it's just this weird in between here. May just be Malma. Maybe Malma's just that way. Oh, got a lot of comments here. Let me see what I've missed here. Where news? Uh, If Danish people speak Danish to me, I answer in Finnish just to spite them. I like how you think. You're funny. I love Finnish, by the way. My favorite doctor I work with at work, he's from Finland. He's a cool dude. Um, Leif, there are two legal frameworks that are easy to confuse. EU long-term residency status, Varaktig Bosat, basically require 5 years of legal and continuous residence and sufficient income. I want to thank you, Leif. I will look into it again. Like I said, this is very confusing to me and as clear as mud. I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to look again and just make sure. Right now, I'm trying to focus on this, what you may call it, this British citizenship, because that's already in process right now. And I should have hopefully an answer in a month or two. I should be a British citizen. But then I'll look into this EU thing and see what's up with that. So thank you so much for Leif. Appreciate you. Schluterup. People today are insane. Pedestrians are also involved in their phones and completely ignore what's happening around them. I know. It looks like zombies. And it's like, I'm afraid to say anything because I don't want them to think like I'm dissing Swedish people or talking bad about them, But it's just like, if I just look around, I'm just like, they're just, tunnel vision. I mean, it scares me to death. It's really disturbing. Let's see here. Canopy Fox, are you familiar with the electric scooter laws in Sweden? My Swedish friend was leading me on scooters, and it seemed like he was just whizzing haphazardly, but he told me he was okay. I don't know any scooter laws because I don't ride a scooter. I do feel like the people on scooters are very dangerous. You really got to watch out for them. They go really fast, and I've had people almost run over me with bikes and scooters as a pedestrian. So, not too happy about that. Leif says, regardless of the UK citizenship, if you are still in Sweden in a few months, apply for the LTR. It can't hurt to have both. I will do it. Thank you, Leif. That means a lot to me. I am definitely going to look into it again. A typical autistic guy here. So one thing I've learned about myself, I really struggle to do something that's new for me. And then once I do it the first time, it's like, oh, it's okay. But it's just that whole hurdle of doing something completely new to me is really intimidating. So thank you for giving me a little wind beneath my wings to kind of encourage me that way. I will definitely look at it again. Shooter, would that mean that I can become a Swedish citizen quickly after living in Germany for 48 years? Are you? Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Like, what would be my question would be though, if you're already, I don't know, this is a dumb American question. If you're already a citizen of one European country, what would be the benefit of getting citizenship in another European country? Because it's like, to me, if I understand it correctly, it's kind of like you already have freedom of movement. You can live and work wherever, right? Or am I off on that? Let me know. I apologize if I have misunderstood that. Because like my thought was, like I say, if I get British, I can move to Ireland. Like I could technically move to Ireland in August if I'm a citizen, work there for 3 years if I meet somebody and marry them, get citizenship, and just come back to Sweden and work in Sweden. I wouldn't need Swedish citizenship, but maybe I don't understand it. Uh, Canopy Fox is saying retirement pension question mark. Should I can freely move around the EU. Yeah. Mr. Zaku 6, do you have permanent Uppehållstillstånd? If so, why would you need citizenship? I don't have that either. I don't have permanent Uppehållstillstånd. I don't have anything. I have just a work permit. And here's the thing. Citizenship currently is only 1 more year than permanent residency. But permanent residency you lose. If I leave Sweden for a year, like let's say my mom gets cancer. Okay. She's got a lot of health problems. Well, let's say she gets cancer. I want to be with her and hold her hand through that. That's very important to me. I already lost my father while being here in Sweden. This is something I'm very passionate about because I didn't expect to lose my dad and I thought I had more time. I was stuck here and I couldn't leave. Because if I leave for an extended period of time, and people say, "Oh, well, they might make an accommodation for you." I don't trust the government. I'm sorry. With all this going on, I don't trust them. Um, I'm gonna stick to what it says on the migration website. That you're gone a certain amount of weeks. You got to start the whole thing again. I don't want to risk it. Don't want to risk it for the biscuit. Um, so it's like after going through that, I don't want to um, go through that again with my mom and then like regret the rest of my life not spending time with her. So this has been a big thing. If my dad had not passed away, we would not be having these discussions. But my dad dying was a wake up call for me about the fragility of life, and for someone to just play around with a huge chunk of your life, hanging citizenship in front of you, saying, "Whoa, 5 years," and then they put out, "No, 8 years," and then they could say 10 years in the future. There's countries that have 12 or 20 years. It's like there's that plays with your head, your health, and your whole life is on hold. And like I said, permanent residency, you can lose it. They're talking about taking away permanent resident. And there's all this crazy stuff going on with permanent residency. Like it'd be better to have citizenship because then you don't have to worry about, it's more secure. Having that permanent residency is more like having a ball and chain around your ankle. And then here's another big thing. If I'm a citizen, then I have the right to live and work wherever in the EU. I can't do that with just a permanent residency in Sweden. So, for example, let's say I want to work for 1 year in Norway, in the north of Norway, you know, just because I want to experience that. Like Swedes do that all the time. And I don't understand why Swedes get bent out of shape about this. Not all Swedes, I apologize. I don't mean all, but I get a lot of flack sometimes from some people about this. They're like, you should never leave Sweden more than 30 days. If you want to leave more than 30 days, then you don't need citizenship and you're not loyal to this country. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I know the majority of Swedes are not like that, but those are the comments that stand out to me. Um, the thing about that is, it's like, that's kind of hypocritical because I have so many friends here in Sweden that have left Sweden for a year, 2 years, or 3 years at a time to go find their self spiritually in India or Vietnam or Laos, or, go on some retreat in Africa and live in the jungle. And then it's like, but I would not be able to do that with permanent residency. And I think it's very unfair. Uh, Having permanent residency basically makes you like a second class citizen. Um, yeah, that's my soapbox. Hopefully that kind of explains that, because I know that's a question I get a lot, is like, why does it matter permanent residency versus citizenship? Sudarup, you're retiring soon. Congratulations. Excited for you. I hope you're excited about that. Um, Leif, if you are a non-EU citizen living in Germany, you can get LTR status in Germany, and then it is easier to move around and work in other EU countries. Interesting. I really need to do more research on this. Like I said, this is not my area of expertise. I'm good at being a nurse and working in healthcare, but this kind of stuff is like different for me. It's almost like a citizenship light. Yeah. Uh, I understand reasons for, okay, this is Kennedy Fox. I understand reasons for why you can't bring your family, but I wish you could bring immediate family who are over the age of 50 or 60. See, that was another thing that you hit another nail on the head, Canopy Fox. If for whatever reason my mother needs help, that's going to be a difficult situation for me as well, which is another reason why I'm thinking about, because if I get British citizenship, my mom is British. So she has the right. If we absolutely had to, I could literally move my entire immediate family to Britain, because my brother and my sister have the right to British citizenship just like I do. So if I get it, if I figure out this thing and it works out good, then I'm probably, if I ever get, a little bit of money extra, I would love to gift my brother and sister the money to get British citizenship, just so they have something. It's better than nothing. It's better than like being in the United States, because none of us are married, none of us have kids, and in America, it's like if you don't have, if you're not married or have kids, who's going to take care of you when you get older? Um, it's unless you're a rich person, like if you made $80,000 plus a year, then you probably could have put money back for a long time, and you might be able to go to like a okay nursing home. But it's very expensive to be in a nursing home in America, and so the ones people usually get into are like state instituted, state funded, where everything smells like urine, and you get abused by staff, and it's just like I wouldn't want that for my family. But if we can get British citizenship for all of us, then at least we have a backup plan, um, in case something happens. So I don't know. The benefits of getting citizenship in another EU country, if you already have one, is mostly voting in elections, and you get a bit more rights to live there long term. Yeah, correct. Mr. Zaku 6, gotcha. Totally understand your thoughts. Thought you had PUT. I'm not sure what PUT is. Oh, permanent Upaholz Tilstone. No problem, my friend. No problem, Mr. Zaku 6. Thanks for asking the question, because it's an important question, and I get it asked so many times. Everybody wants to know, and they just don't understand. And so I think it was good that you asked the question. And you have British, Irish, and Swedish citizenship. Dude, I am impressed. You have all three. Are you going to get a fourth one? So that was a funny thing too. I was talking to my dentist. She's actually Vietnamese and speaks 5 languages. And I was telling her about this whole thing with the British citizenship. And I was like, and then I could get Irish, and then I could move to Sweden again. And she's like, yeah, but you can't have more than 2 citizenships. And in some countries, you can't have more than one. I said, that's true. But actually, in all those 3 countries, the UK, Ireland, and the United States, there is no limit to how many citizenships you can have. You can actually collect as many as you want. It's an interesting thing. Oh, let me turn off my TV. Sorry about that. My TV just like automatically like turned on. You got to see my nerdy YouTube channel that I'm watching right now. I love stuff about Star Trek. Sorry, I'm a big nerd. Let's see what's Mr. Zaku 6. Yes, Sweden allows 2. You're a criminal. But they don't check. I mean, that's the thing I keep seeing, is just like it's not really enforced. They would have a hard time, like how are they gonna know? I don't know. I mean, there's probably a way, but they got enough bigger fires they're trying to put out right now. So, but I do like the idea of, honestly, if Canada became a part of the EU, I would just go that route, because it'd be close to my family, and I could live there, enjoy life. I want my little log cabin out in the woods by a lake, out in the forest, and I can take care of patients out in the wilderness. That to me sounds amazing. That's just a dream. And be able to work in like rescue medicine or work in a helicopter. My 2 big things about why I wanted to do nursing was they work 3 12-hour shifts a week. So you have 4 days off a week. And then to be able to work in helicopter. Those are 2 big reasons I chose to be a nurse, 20 years ago. And sadly, in Sweden, we don't have 12-hour shifts. So you work more hours per week here than in America. You work 40 hours instead of 36. They also make you change your shifts. So like a few days you're working morning shift, then you're working afternoon shift. Then in some places you even have to switch to evenings. In the United States, like you get all nights or you get all days. And I prefer that because my body can't handle, it's like major jet lag constantly. And then yeah, but Canada, they are very similar to America. They have 12-hour shifts there. Some places have 8-hour shifts, some have 10-hour shifts. Um, yeah, I feel like, and then they have nurse practitioner role, which they don't have in Sweden. So that'd be awesome. I don't know. We'll see. Um, Mr. Zaku 6, how long until you can apply for citizenship in Sweden? So that's the question. That's the $1 million question right now, my man. Um, it is currently, if the government didn't change the laws in June, because they're trying to change in June from 5 years to 8 years, which I think is a huge jump. If it was 5 years, I would apply for citizenship in a little under 2.5 years. So my plan was I was going to apply for permanent residency in a year and a half, and then citizenship in 2.5 years. But now, if this new law goes through in June, then that means I would have to wait 5.5 years till I could apply, and that's to apply. Then you have to wait for approval to take a language exam. Then you do that. Then you wait for the result. Then you have to apply for a civics test. Then you do that. Then you wait for the results. Then you got to wait for approval. So it's like that could take a year or two to do all that stuff. So you're talking total for me would be 12 years because they're not going to count my first 2 years studying Swedish at the university and my first job. They're not going to count because it was a study work extension. So where are we at? We getting some cool comments in here. Where news? I'm following a few people that are trying to cancel the U.S. citizenship, and it's hard and expensive. Yes, they're actually, the United States is trying to change that. Last time I checked, I don't know what it costs now, but the last time I checked, it was $25,000 you have to pay to cancel your American citizenship. I personally would not do it. It's annoying because I have to report my, I don't have to necessarily pay tax, but I have to report my tax every year. And if I make a certain amount, then there is a possibility of paying a little extra tax, probably into Social Security or something like that. I will never make the amount of money that is the limit. So I will never have to pay tax in America. I'll just have to report it for till I die because Swedish salaries are so low. You have to make, in order to like get above the threshold, they bump the threshold now. You have to make the equivalent of 120,000 US dollars per year. That's a lot of money. I've never made that in America. And I'm never going to make that here in Sweden. So that's like 1.2 million kroner a year. I mean, that's insane money. So I wouldn't, so it's kind of like, I'm not, most of the people that are canceling their US citizenships, it's because they're millionaires and they make a lot of money. And so they try to use like tax havens and ways to move the money around and stuff so that they can evade taxes. I mean, it's legal, it's totally legal, but because of being an American citizen, then they still have to pay tax and they don't want to do that. And so that's why a lot of them get rid of, I mean, there's other reasons, of course, but that's the most common one. But last time I checked, it's like 25,000, but they're trying to reduce it. I saw something pop up in my feed, I think on the local Sweden. It said something like they're going to reduce it to $2,500 to renounce your citizenship. But the problem is, like in my situation, that would be really stupid because it could affect my retirement, my pension plan, because I want to, if I want to retire in Sweden, my pension is going to be not enough to survive. And then I found out just today, you get taxed on even your pensions and sick pay and all that stuff, which is weird to me. Like my mom, she gets a pension, she doesn't have to pay tax on it. It's like, that's already like tax free. She would have to pay tax if, she had a job on the side or something like that, but she didn't have to pay tax. So she does a lot better than she would in Sweden. Where was I going with that? So because I've only been paying into the Swedish pension system for the last 2.5 years, If I'm going to retire, see, I'm 44, I have to work another 23 years or something like that. So my pension is going to be very low. So I would need to make sure I'm going to get my pension from America that I paid into years ago. And the pensions work very different in Sweden and the United States. So I'm not really going to get a lot from the United States. Actually, if you haven't worked in a long time, it really affects your pension a lot because they base a lot on what you made those last 4 years, is what I've been told in the United States. I could be wrong, but from what I understand, a lot of it, this factors like the last 4 years you worked in America. And so if I haven't worked there, then that's going to be a big cut too. Then if you lose your American citizenship, then there's the fear. My fear, and I could be totally unfunded. My big fear would be that I would lose the pension in the United States, and I wouldn't want to do that because my pension's not going to be. I've already looked at what it's going to be like. If I made what I'm making now and just continue on, I will not be able to survive on a Swedish pension. It's too low because, like I said, I've only been paying into it for the last 2 years versus a Swede who's grown up in the system and paying since they were like 18. So that's a big concern I got right now that I've also been considering here. Another reason why I thought about, going because I'm like, I could literally go back to the States because I got my master's as a nurse practitioner, but I've never worked in the role because I graduated during the pandemic and moved right to Sweden before my license. But I could go back to the States and make enough money to put back in the bank and pay cash for a house like in the north of Sweden. And then a lot of the cost of living is actually on housing, right? So then all the money that I would have been putting towards housing, I can just put in savings because I'm not going to have much of a pension. I'm going to have to like save the money myself. I don't know. Pension stuff's really complicated. So just some thoughts, just thinking out loud. See what other comments we got here. Scandy talk. Interesting topics listening from my kitchen. Michael and oh hey Michael, good to see you again here. Glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, me and Michael, if y'all are curious, we did an interview. Y'all can go and look at my content. We did a little interview kind of talking about because he's Norwegian, but he's been living in Sweden for many, 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 many years. And he's also lived in America. And then, of course, he lived in Norway. And so it's interesting hearing his take. We were talking a little bit about the healthcare systems of the United States versus um, Norway versus Sweden. So if y'all are curious about that, feel free to take a look at that interview, that podcast there. Um, let's see here. I don't want to miss any of these comments. Big fan of modern log cabins, wooden cottages, and big glass windows. Would love to live in one of those someday. I know, right? I've seen some amazing, especially in Canada, dude. They've got some amazing stuff. And I follow a lot of people on YouTube, like in Michigan area, that have stuff like that. It just seems like a dream. I feel like it's a bigger deal in that part of the world than here in Sweden. I mean, it's here. They have it here, but not to the extent of like North America. Um, Scandy talk. When I was living in the States, didn't see anyone on bikes. You need to go visit Texas. It's really changing. Austin, Texas, the capital, is getting more favorable to bicycles, and then there is um, where I'm from, where I was living before I came here, was Fort Worth, and they're putting in some really good bicycle routes, beautiful bicycle trails by the rivers and through the parks. I mean, I would say it sort of almost rivals the bicycle paths here in Malmö. Like it would put probably Malmö to shame, actually, to be quite honest. But not all of Texas is like that, and I think it's very unique to that area because those are very like more hipstery places, let's see here. Mr. Zaku6, FYI, they are almost always looking for ICU nurses in region Örebro Len if you ever get tired of mama. I am thinking about it. They do pay more. I would make probably 10,000 more kroner a month, which would be nice. Uh, and then from what I understand, they have a thing. It's like if you work only nights, which is hard to get, but if you can eventually only work nights, they told me they wouldn't let me do only nights until I've been a nurse for a few years because they want to make sure that you know what you're doing. Whereas in America, it's the other way around. It's like you start on nights. You don't start on days. They put you on nights on purpose because the seasoned nurses don't want to do nights. They want to do days, even though it's lower pay. I liked nights because it was, quieter. You didn't have administration breathing down your neck. You weren't getting micromanaged. You didn't have management. You didn't have all these procedures being done. It was pretty good, except for when it didn't wasn't good and something bad happened. Then it was like crap hit the fan. But yeah, I definitely would consider it. I think the big issue for me is the language. I don't feel strong enough in my like, even though I'm fluent, in the ICU, it's a very high stress, fast paced environment. And so you need to be pretty comfortable with your Swedish skills and very high word bank. Um, if something were to happen in ICU, because these people are very, very sick. They had enough faith in me at the other ICU, but then, like I said, to work there, that they offered me a job at the same time. A lot of these positions have been posted for a long time, so they could have just been desperate and willing to take me just because they needed somebody. But I feel like I really need to review a lot of the ICU stuff in Sweden because they don't have certain stuff we have in America. Like in America, we have in Canada, we have respiratory therapists that run the ventilators. They do all the nebulizer treatments, all the oxygen stuff, the breathing exercises. We don't mess with any of that as nurses. We don't have to. We're trained how to do it, but we don't mess with it. So it's like I don't really know how to do a lot of that stuff, and I would have to learn to do it in Sweden. So there's like little things like that, or taking an arterial blood gas where you like stick a needle inside the artery. It's not like getting it from a vein. I mean, this is more serious. Getting from the artery to measure blood gases and stuff. I've never done that in my life. So there's just a lot of stuff like that I need to get comfortable with. But it's definitely something I've thought about. I've even thought about going back possibly and getting training to do something else that I've never done. Like I thought about anesthesia nurse or OR nurse. OR nurses are the highest paying ones, but I don't know yet. I have to think long and hard about it. The problem that we'll run into is I work full time and I don't know if my boss would be, we're already like short staff. And so if I were to take a year off for education, because they do have a program here where I'm at where they pay for your education, but it's like my boss would not be getting benefit from it, even though I'd be working in the same hospital. It'd be a different department, and it's going to impact the department where I live or where I work negatively. Uh, I don't know, but I have been looking at it a little bit this week just to know what my options are. And I thought, well, what if I went back to school and did ICU, even though I have my ICU certification in Sweden? But they're like, no, you don't qualify because you already got the certification from America approved. So if I'm going to go back to school for something, I thought, well, maybe I could either do district quarterska, like a community specialist nurse, or um, anesthesia, or even maybe ambulance. I don't know. I'm throwing a few ideas around. I do think if I go back to States, I kind of want to work in emergency care, some sort of acute emergency care. I've only done ICU. I've never done like emergency. So, uh, let's see here. Just bought a place north of Orebro. I'll be moving there in about 4 weeks. Oh, congratulations. That's so cool. Really happy for you. Is it like going to be out in the forest? Imagine it's real pretty up there. You're sure ICU wouldn't be a problem? Yeah, hopefully not. We'll see. I think a lot of stuff I'm waiting on. This is the situation. The things that I'm waiting on. I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks to Texas, so I'm going to be there for two weeks. So right now, I don't want to do anything because there's that, and I'm dealing with burnout. I've been struggling with burnout, and I've already told my boss and my coworkers I have burnout right now from working in Sweden. It's just really, really hard doing 40 hours a week. With the way it's designed, and me being an autistic person, I'm really struggling here. I've never had this problem in America, but in Sweden, the way the work is set up, I'm just really having a tough time as an autistic person. Um, So there's that. So I'm like, I just need to recover and recuperate on vacation. And then we got to see what happens in June if the government changes to 8 years. Because if it's 8 years, I'm kind of like throwing in the towel. Because, like I said, this is like a carrot on a stick that just keeps moving. Because in the beginning, they were going to count 5 years from the time I came to Sweden. Then they were going to count 5 years from the time I finished my Swedish and started my new job because I was paying taxes. Then they moved it up even further and they said, now we're only going to count from the time you were offered the job at the place that you work at. Then they pushed it up again. So that would have been like April of 2023, I think. Yeah, April 2023. Then they pushed it up and said, no, we're going to do it from August for whatever reason. Then they pushed it up again. So it's like they just keep moving the carrot, and it's like, okay, so it's gonna be 7.5 years for me living here to apply for citizenship. Then they say 8 years, so it's like then you add on another 3 years. What's to say they don't add on? And then they could just all of a sudden say, well, there was this year back in 2022, we noticed you were on vacation, you know, a certain amount of weeks, and because of that, you had to start the whole process over again. So it's like there's just that constant like stress of not knowing. I just think 8 years is just way too long. After a point, yeah, I think it's unreasonable. The only exception to that would be maybe some countries that are overpopulated, like for example, Switzerland. Makes sense. Switzerland's a tiny country, and there's a lot of people that move there, and there's not a lot of land. And so in Switzerland, they are actually trying to pass a law that there'll be a cap of 10 million people by 2050, that they won't go over that amount. Totally makes sense. Limited resources. Liechtenstein, little bitty country. You can drive across it in like a matter of minutes, um, maybe an hour from top to bottom. 30,000 people there. There's just not a way. I mean, it's be really, really difficult, to take on a lot of people there. So I understand places like that having a long wait. Um, you know, yeah. But like Sweden, it's one of the largest countries in Europe. It's the third largest country in Europe, from what I recall. And there's all this empty space, lots of resources here. I think the issue is you need people here that can actually work, and people that contribute to the society, and can innovate and create, and you need people to come, because people in Sweden are living longer. This is a big problem right now. People are living longer in Sweden. The population is aging. And I, as a nurse, am seeing we were talking about this today at one of our meetings. It is getting very hard to work in healthcare because the care of patients is getting harder and harder and more complicated. So back in the day, people died really young. Now they're living really long. And so they don't just have diabetes. They have diabetes, renal failure, heart failure, amputation, cancer. It's just like tons of different medical concerns. And then it's like back in the day, they would have passed away by a certain age, but they're living to be 85, 95, some of them 100. I have a few patients up to that age. And so now you're taking care of not just them, but you're taking care of their children who are, 70, 80 years old. And then their kids are, middle aged, 50s, 60s. And people are having less children. And, the money has to come from somewhere. There needs to be some way to be putting back into the system to pay for this welfare state. And it's like I think there's a better way to address the situation than just saying a blanket statement like everybody has to learn Swedish, pass the civics test, and wait for 8 years. Because you could do all those things and still not be a good citizen, right? You could come here, marry some Swedish person, be samba with them, whatever, be here 8 years, not really contribute to society, and just live off the system eventually. That's not a guarantee, but I think having an attractive system for people who are skilled workers that have demonstrated their skill, I think that makes sense. And a lot of countries have already gone to that. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. Um, I digress. Let's see what we got here. Stay strong, buddy. Enjoy your holiday break. Recharge. Gotta go. Thanks for awesome live stream. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for hanging out with us. You were very welcome. It was really cool to get to chat with you. Let's see if I've missed anything here. Kind of scrolling through the comments. There's a lot of comments in here. My goodness, this is cool. Uh, yeah, I think I've got the other thing. Canopy Fox, am I dating now? No, I am not. I am not. I'll be honest with you. I was very hopeful coming to Sweden that I would find somebody, but to be honest, I am so tired when I come home from work. I just don't have the energy to go out, and I think that's one of the problems is I need to put myself out there, but all my energy goes to cooking, cleaning, preparing for the next day. So I just feel here lately, like I said, I'm dealing with burnout and I feel like a hamster in a wheel. So I'm not really in a situation mentally or physically to be bringing in another person into the picture, if you know what I mean. Um, so that's been really tough. Um, but it is what it is. Can't do anything about that. I feel too, then the Swedish culture is a little difficult trying to meet people. One of the things I find is really weird is you never know who's actually available. Like in America, it's like kind of like advertised. Oh, I'm with so and so. And it's just like, there's been a few people I'm like, oh, they seem nice or I'm interested in them. And then you find out they're in a relationship and you had no idea. Bit of a tangent here. I have heard some people struggle making friends in Sweden. Is there any truth to that? It is. Yeah, I would say I've been fortunate. I've made a lot of good friends in Sweden, but I know a lot of people struggle with making friends here in Sweden. It's very, very common. Um, oh, thank you, Canopy Fox. Thank you for the fine comment. Appreciate that. Yeah, hopefully I'll find the one. We'll see. So I do want to have kids. I do want a family. I did think I was going to get married a lot younger. From a young age, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be married." Stupid young guy. Like I'm going to be married and I'm gonna have 6 kids and the nice house, two-story house with a picket fence. I'm 44. None of that's happened. I was a dreamer, I guess you'd say. Very unrealistic. But I knew some families that my parents' generation did that. A lot of the boomers and the generation before them, they had big families and the wife didn't work and, the husband made enough money to pay for the whole family. And, they had a nice house out in the country with horses and stuff like that. It's like, but things are different these days everywhere on this world. So, well, I've been jibber jabbing long enough. It's an hour and 17 minutes. I think I've probably talked your ears off, and it's been fun talking with you guys. I've gotten a lot of comments on here. I really appreciate it. Um, yeah, I want to thank all my members too, as well, for being members. I really appreciate the support. I'm kind of working on trying to come up with some ideas for members only content, basically like more intimate videos and stuff that I'll be putting out there. So I'm kind of working on that. I'll probably be posting a bunch of stuff on there for the members from Texas when I go to Texas. Because I had to be careful what I put on YouTube, like the public algorithm, because you have to stay in a niche. And if you like deviate from that niche, then like if I start doing a Swedish language video, on my thing, then the algorithm's going to get confused. I'll probably also put some more stuff on there for members, like people that are wanting to get their nursing licenses here in Sweden and need help with that. Maybe some tips on learning medical vocabulary for nurses. So if y'all have any ideas of some membership content, make sure, you can always leave a comment on my channel somewhere. And I do take all that into consideration. So, well, thank you guys for tonight. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll try to see each other next week. I want to try to make this a thing every Wednesday. That's my goal, every Wednesday. So we will try around 8:30 next week if all goes well. Yeah, thank you, cue ball. Cool to have you hanging out with us. I will definitely. I'll think about you when I eat some barbecue in Texas. If you're not a vegan. Yeah, thank you so much, Sluter. You appreciate it very much. Well, uh, yeah, cheers to you as well, cue ball. God natt, Leif. Tack för att du var här på YouTube med oss. Ha det så gott. Have a good evening, everyone. Take good care of yourselves.